Hello, greetings from frigid Lincoln, Nebraska, where it's 34 degrees. Warmed up quite a bit today and yesterday. Uh, Recently, my wife and I, returned from a trip to Phoenix, Arizona, and then to Portland, Oregon, to visit my son. We drove out to Phoenix with her mother to see some friends and whatnot, and then we flew up to Portland and flew back home Sunday night, where we were greeted by 9 degrees below zero temperatures. So I'm still trying to warm up a little of that, a little bit smoky maple whiskey. I'm gonna do a tag uh, this evening. It is Tuesday. I was invited to do this tag by Scott at the Bookish Bryant's. I was not tagged, but I was invited. So let's go ahead and do that. This is the Josh's breakfast book tag. Now, there's another book tag floating around out there, um, also called the breakfast book tag, and maybe I'll do that too in a little bit. It's a little bit shorter, but this one is from Josh at the Literary Gladiators, and I will um, I'll leave a link to his um, video below. So I'll get started. The first prompt is Pancakes, a light but syrupy work that sticks with you. Okay, I don't read a lot of light syrupy things, so I'll go with this one. It's not at all light. It's short. It was easy for me to read. It's not syrupy at all, but it has stuck with me. I read this. It's a Chronicle of a Death Foretold by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I read it during March Mystery Madness, and it's still with me. that's a good one. Like I say, not syrupy, not light, but it has stuck with me. Okay, Waffles. Prompt number 2. An organized collection of works. I have several of those. My Norton anthologies. I'm going to go, though, with this one here. If you can read that, past the glare. M.F.K. Fisher's The Art of Eating. Now, this includes some of her other books, all bound into one volume. Serve It Forth, Consider the Oyster, How to Cook a Wolf, The Gastronomical Me, and An Alphabet of Gourmets. Now, this is one, hopefully, that I'll be reading this year. Okay, prompt number 3, Eggs, a work that can be read and interpreted in different ways. Well, James Holder, when he did this tag, recently pointed out that any work of fiction can be seen differently each time you read it. But for me, the one that stands out most is Catcher in the Rye. I read this as a youngster, relatively speaking. My first impression then was, okay, I think I read it a little too late. And then I read it just a few years ago, and I thought completely differently of it. I thought the Holden Caulfield was a whiny little so-and-so, didn't feel anything for him at all. And then, you go back to it, and I feel completely different about it now. So, Catcher in the Rye. Prompt number 4, Serial, a work or writer you feel benefits from great advertising and press. And I'm going to go with Kurt Vonnegut Jr. on this. I love Kurt Vonnegut Jr. I love his work. This is kind of a representative of old Kurt. Just a little prop. I think he got some good press. He's really highly thought of, despite maybe some of the unevenness of some of his work. He's produced some excellent books, but I'll have to go with Kurt Vonnegut Jr. on that one. Bacon. Prompt number 5. A writer you find as the closest thing to perfect. I read a lot of Jane Austen this year, this past year, 2021. So here's my representative Jane Austen. This was the favorite of mine. She's flawless. She's just the best. And she did it first. Everybody who's written a romance novel since her has, not that I've read a lot of romance, but she's the touchstone. Okay, Canadian Bacon, a work that sets up heated debate. How about Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand? That has always, I've had some debates about her work. I have never been able to finish that, to be honest. But I've read enough to realize that it's not really that good, and the ideas in it aren't really that good either. Prompt number 7, Toast. What you read when you want to read something quick. And I'm going to go with sci-fi here, science fiction short stories, to be precise. I'm in love with them. You can't beat them for just great ideas, just easy reads, just the best. Breakfast sandwich. Do you believe audiobooks make reading more convenient? Yes, I do. I tend to read a book that I find really hard to get through. I will read along with the audiobook. The Way We Live Now is an example. I read probably 2/3 of that, read along with listening to the audiobook, just to keep myself concentrating on what was going on. So definitely, audiobooks do have a place. I have a hard time doing other things and listening to an audiobook. My concentration just isn't there. But I'm not going to fault anybody for listening to audiobooks. Wet the whistle here a little bit. Okay, a strong series. No, prompt number 9, sausage. A strong series or trilogy. Okay, you cannot beat The Lord of the Rings. I mean, what can you say? This is the best. There's so much that I'm reading, that I have read and am reading now, that you can see the Lord of the Rings in it. So I'll go with that. Prompt number 10, coffee. Share any reading ritual. Well, I was going to say that no, I don't really have any reading rituals. I read when and where I can. I take the time, make the time, just no rituals to it. So moving on to number 11, milk. A work or writer that is fading away. Now I'm taking this to mean a writer that people are forgetting, maybe. Or a writer that is read very little today. I would have to go with Thomas Wolfe, although I'm going to be reading this, hopefully this year. Another writer, as Steve Donahue mentioned, Tom Robbins. This is Jitterbug Perfume. I think you can really. I read Tom Robbins. I read Still Life with Woodpecker was probably my first one that I read of his. Really enjoyed it, but you don't hear a lot about him anymore. So I'm gonna go back to him though, and I buy every one that I can find when I'm out and about, thrift shops, whatever. So he's definitely still on my list. Okay, number 12, Orange Juice, a work that you, man, listen to that wind, whistling, whistling past the window. Okay, Orange Juice, prompt number 12, a work that you, as in the person completing this tag, really should read. Now, these are 3 books that I started this year. Middlemarch and Against the Day, and Wuthering Heights. Middlemarch I got maybe 100 plus pages into and just had to put it down. It wasn't interesting me at all. I had kind of a mixed opinion of the protagonist up to that point, but I'm going to get back to it and finish it. Hopefully this year, who knows. Wuthering Heights, I don't know how many times I started that book. I started it again this year thinking that I was going to get right through it, and that'll be another one that's on my list for this year. And Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon, I started that a couple years ago, set it down, and then I started it again during March of the Mammoths. Got further into it, and then just other things got in the way. So that's one I might take my time with that one, maybe spread it out over several months, but I definitely, that's going to be read this year, Against the Day. Okay, prompt number 12, BLT, a work that benefits or benefited from something in demand. Now, I would say any of the endless fantasy series, or science fiction series, the Dune series, which I love. The books are good. Wheel of Time, I'm in the middle of the first one, the first volume of that. But these books are continued even after the death of the writer who started them. So there's something there in the water that people want, and they're going to get it. Number 14, Hash Browns, a choppy work that forms into something spectacular. Now, I'm going to go with this little guy here. This book is nuts. You never know where you're going to end, what chapter you're going to go into. When you finish a chapter, you're suddenly deep in the bowels of whales and everything about them. You're in bed with, Ishmael and Queequeg. You're floating in the water. You're in a totally different story. But when you're done and it's all together in your mind, it is magnificent. Number 15, Canadian bacon, Taylor ham, or pork roll. I don't know for sure what a Taylor ham or pork roll are. I looked them up in Google, and variations on Canadian bacon, I guess. So I'll go with Canadian bacon. You love that Canadian bacon, especially on an egg muffin. You can't beat it. What is your favorite breakfast? I'm going to go with scrambled eggs or an omelet, Western omelet, and sausage. Just the good old-fashioned breakfast. You're invited to brunch. Who do you tag? The last prompt, number 17. Everyone has done this by now. So if you're listening to the sound of my voice and you haven't done it, you're tagged. So that is the breakfast book tag by Josh at Literary Gladiators. I'll probably just go on into the other one. after the break. Okay, this is the Breakfast Book Tag. Original tag by Kathy Trithart, um, dated April 2020, and I'll put a link to that one as well. You're getting a twofer today. Okay, so prompt number 1, coffee, hot but not scalding. So this is, let's go with Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Um, that frisky Henry Crawford and Maria Bertram. There's a little bit of heat going on there, but it's not anything really really super out in the open or described in too much detail. Also, a runner-up would be Face of the Unknown. It's a Star Trek novel in which Spock gets a little lovin', and that's also handled really tastefully and logically. Okay, prompt number 2, bagel. So good you can forgive the plot holes. I'm going to go with The Simulacra by Philip K. Dick. I read this during New World's November, loved it, but there's, between the abandoned storylines and the botched time travel issues, there are a few issues with this novel, but I did love it and I would recommend it. So I'll go with The Simulacra for that one. Number 3, best cereal, best consumed quickly. I tend to read graphic novels really quickly. I don't let them. I don't like savor them or look through the pictures. I do read the story and then move on to something else. So I read Kingdom Come this year, which I loved. So I'm gonna say that one. Prompt number 4, toast, something that got a little dark. Okay, I finished The Loved One by Evelyn Waugh late December, and that definitely got a little dark. Took a turn. So it was funny, hilarious book, but yeah, I'll go with that one. Prompt number 5, oatmeal, a book that makes you feel nice and warm. Right after I finished The Loved One, I started Project Hail Mary, and I could not put it down. I read it in about 3 days. I loved that book. It was I don't want to say uplifting, but yeah, kind of. It made me happy. So I'm going to go with Project Hail Mary. That's a good one, and I would recommend it. It deserves all the praise it's getting. Lost my place here. Number 6, juice. Pick your favorite flavor and pick a book based on its color. Cranberry, of course, and One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. Partly because I really like this book, and partly because it's the only book I have that really is read, apart from, oh yeah, here's The Loved One. Forgot to hold that up. Read Catcher in the Rye, but I used that in a previous incarnation, so I'll go with that one. Egg tofu scramble. As different ways to eat them as to live. Name a memoir. I have not read a lot of memoirs, especially this past year. I've been sticking mainly to fiction, and especially classic fiction and sci-fi. But I have, in recent years, read Eminent Hipsters by Donald Fagen, who was half of the Steely Dan band, I guess, which I really liked. I guess they're still together, even though not all of them are alive. So yeah, number 8, fancy pastries, a genre you don't read all the time, but love when you do. I'm going to go with mysteries. Don't read a lot of mysteries, but I got involved in March Mystery Madness last year. And let me see if I can bring this up. My list of books. During March, I read Rebecca, which I really loved. The number 1 ladies detective agency was one that was surprisingly good. And that's by an author who has done a modern take on Jane Austen, Emma. I can't say enough good things about it. It's part of a series. It's the first one of those endless series of books, but they're all mysteries. Read The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie, The Late Monsieur Gallet by Simenon, Blood on Snow by Joe Nesbo, Study in Scarlet, Arthur Conan Doyle, and The Chronicle of a Death Foretold, which I have mentioned before. I never would have read these books if, well, maybe The Chronicle of a Death Foretold, but I never would have otherwise read these books. But I made a list going into that month, and I couldn't be happier with the way it turned out. Number 9, Mimosa. Getting into brunch territory, so name a book you're looking forward to. I'm going to go with Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. I have not read that yet. I've started it a couple of times over the past several years, but I'm really looking forward to reading that this year. As well as Absalom by William Faulkner. But I'm mostly looking forward to Crime and Punishment. Okay, breakfast for dinner. Tell us about something you like to eat for breakfast and about a book of your choice. Okay, scrambled eggs and sausage, maybe omelet and sausage, but something along those lines. That's my go-to breakfast. The books that I would like to talk about, both, I have 2 that are kind of close, neck and neck for me. I've read them both this year. Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin, and The Word for World is Forest, also by Ursula K. Le Guin. I loved Lathe of Heaven. Le Guin out Philip K. Dick in that one. I loved it. Word for World is Forest actually made me cry in a couple of places, so it was that was a good one too. Okay, so same story. I'm sure most people have done this tag or the other breakfast tag, but if you haven't, you're it. So until next time, BookTube, thanks for letting me waste your time.